Hello, good people. This is a PSA from TSA. You are listening to the Underground Railroad Show at Spreaker.com. I am the great TSA with my assistant, That Ninja. I'm sorry for the lack of attendance. I was busy spiking faces and beating data dominoes. TSA out.
Oh, man, I love the game of golf. It was a beautiful day out here today, wasn't it, baby girl? You didn't think it was a nice day today?
Well, I am sweating all over, so no, I didn't really think it was.
Well, I mean, you got to drive the car. You got to drive the car, and it did have the hood on it, so it kept the sun off of you.
Yeah, but it had no air conditioning.
Well, okay, fair enough. So, we're going to get something to eat, right?
Of course.
Cool.
And you're obviously paying, right?
Always. Always. Man, golf is a fun sport. Hey, I drove the ball pretty well today, don't you think?
Pretty well to the far right, yeah?
But, okay, even though
Who this nigga on that name?
Oh, man, I love the game of golf. It was a beautiful day out here today, wasn't it, baby girl? You didn't think it was a nice day today?
Well, I am sweating all over, so no, I didn't really think it was.
Well, I mean, you got to drive the car. You got to drive the car, and it did have the hood on it, so it kept the sun off of you.
Yeah, but it had no air conditioning.
Well, okay, fair enough. So, we're going to get something to eat, right?
Of course.
Cool.
And you're obviously paying, right?
Always. Always. Man, golf is a fun sport. Hey, I drove the ball pretty well today, don't you think?
Pretty well to the far right, yeah?
But, okay, even though I went right, my iron game was really good, and I was able to fight my way out of that.
Yeah, but you hit it into the sand, and you did that quite often, might I add.
Even when I went in the sand, my chip was really tight, so I was able to get out of there and get close to the flag.
After 3 times.
You have to admit, though, my putting game was really good, and it saved me a lot of the times from all of the bad hits I had out in the fairway.
And it only took you 11 holes. Listen, until you get a good golfing game, I'm going to keep giving you shit.
I'm improving. I mean, since I've gotten started, haven't I got a lot better?
Yes, you've gotten better since your injury.
We don't have to talk about my shoulder, but I mean, that's another reason why it's coming along slowly, but, you know, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it.
Sure.
Hey, baby girl, I'm about to go hop in the shower. When I get out, we'll head out to the volleyball tournament, okay?
Okay. Oh, can I use my the computer?
Oh, yeah, of course, baby. Of course. Hey, baby girl.
Yeah.
Repetition breeds familiarity.
Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort breeds complacency or success. We're going for the latter rather than the former.
All right, good deal. Handle business.
Okay.
Hey, remember, you're a beast out there. Act like it.
I will.
All right.
Let me see what he got in these emails. Spam. Overdue bills. Not surprised. Fuck the police coming straight from the underground. Young nigga got it bad 'cause he's broke. What is this? Sarah? Linda? Becky? Amber? Amy? Molly? Ginger? Heather? Karen? Oh, hell no. We are not having this. No, I don't want no Pancake Tuesdays. Oh God, delete. No, I do not want your lemon bars, Karen. Ooh, my dad's gonna get...
Do you have strong opinions and you're looking for a way to express them? Are you tired of carbon copy sports radio that infests the airwaves? Do you have creative concepts and ideas that you want to share with the world? Then this is not the commercial for you. This commercial is all about
Kinko's University.
That's right. Kinko's University gets you prepared for the podcasting world when you don't have the chops for it. If you're one of the many people looking to get into podcasting, but you just don't have the skill, Kinko's University is the university for you.
I want to do a podcast, but where do I start? And what do I talk about?
Kinko's University.
Don't worry. Here at Kinko's University, the first thing we teach you about is OPP. That's right. Other people's perspective. So you can always have something to talk about getting it from another source.
Podcasting looks fun, but do I really have to do all that research and show prep?
Kinko's University.
Absolutely not. Here at Kinko's, we have classes like No Preparation 101, where we teach you to get around all of that pesky show prep because we know you don't have the time.
I wonder what the best time slot is to get the most listeners.
Kinko's University.
Don't worry, here at Kinko's, we have a class called Recycling Ideas 101, where you can find a time slot that works and just jump in that slot to try to make it happen for yourself.
Kinko's University.
I want to come up with new content and subject matter, but I'm not that creative.
Kinko's University.
You'll also take Regurgitation 101, which will help you come up with other people's subject matter that you can recycle and make your own. That's right, here at Kinko's, we teach you how to get around hard work, getting new wrinkles in your brain, and having to work hard at your craft. Come to Kinko's, where you can take these top courses with top teachers. Most people that go to Kinko's graduate with Kinko's degrees, that's right, as master copiers. Kinko's University, for the skilled impaired.
Kinko's University is not a real university and is not accredited. You don't actually learn any skills. You just learn how to mimic people who have actual skill.
Underground Railroad Show with that ninja. All aboard, have your tickets ready because the train has arrived. Delayed or on time, it's time to get on board.
What's going on, fam? This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, that ninja. Thank you for coming aboard, and I hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. Right off the bat, and first things first, my apologies for last week, and I didn't even give y'all the courtesy of some type of alert and or warning, so there's really no apology for that, but I'll apologize anyway.
That motherfucker must have lost his goddamn mind.
You must be on something.
I can only say I'm sorry and move on. But, you know, life be life and all that good shit, all the excuses. So thank you for coming aboard, man. Truly appreciate it. Would have liked to gotten this off about an hour ago, but wasn't possible. So for the foreseeable future, I mean, it is what it is. All right, let's get into it. Part 3 of the Black Panther Party series featuring Fred Hampton. Okay, again, I didn't do a show last week. My apologies. I want to stay on schedule, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do part 3 of the series today. Tomorrow, I'm going to come back on same time, unless I manage to jump on a little bit earlier. But just to be on the safe side, let's say 6 Central. I'll come on again tomorrow, and I'm going to do Stokely Carmichael. That will complete the Black Panther Party series, at least for now. I might possibly extend it because it really goes deeper. The more I dug into it, the more I found out, the more I realized, every now and again I might think I'm a little too harsh, and then I keep digging and I'm like, no, you're about right. You're about right. You probably are still a kind of lenient considering, you know, if we talk about scales and balance, considering, I'm kind of lenient. So history is interesting. Actual history, not the bullshit we're talking, but actual history is interesting. Again, thank you for coming aboard. I'll do a quick reset of recent activities and/or the weekends I normally do. Then I'm going to jump right into it. We're in a good place. We at 6:12. Okay, we're in a good place time wise. So via Huntsville, Alabama activities. Oh, wait a minute. That was wrong. My apologies. Via Huntsville, Alabama activities. This past weekend, this past Saturday, they had the Taste of Soul Festival. The Taste of Soul Festival. So essentially, what you imagine, ninja centric type deal, a lot of food trucks, merchants, t-shirts, trinkets, cigar cats that sell cigars, things of this nature. So I just get into it. Baby girl came home this weekend because one of her friends had a birthday. Their birthdays are kind of close together. So one of her good friends, probably one of her closest friends, I'd say at least in the top two, probably her closest friend. Matter of fact, I know this her closest friend. So she came home and they both kind of did a little birthday activity and kicked it. And of course, I reserved a day. I sent her the information, asked her, did she want to go to Taste of Soul? She said, absolutely. Got the ticket. So went into there Saturday, right? Nice little scene that was at the amphitheater. I think a lot of cities have, slow down, T. A lot of cities have amphitheaters, those outside theaters, where you have concerts, different things. They do anything from concerts to classes to things like they had a Juneteenth festival there at one point. But this Taste of Soul thing was pretty cool. Now, before when I mentioned this place, I talked about the Juneteenth thing, and they didn't allow anybody to sell any type of liquid. Like, if you wanted anything to drink, it had to be from them. From what I could tell this time around, they allowed people to serve beverages if they wanted, but of course, they were the only people that allowed to sell alcohol. So me and baby girl walk in, nice crowd too. It was a good, nice little event, and it ended up being a really nice day. I expected it to be warm. Had a little cold front come through, so it was like high 60s, high or like low 70s, but a little bit of sun. So it was a perfect day. Everybody basically wearing sweatsuits. Something like it was almost exclusively some type of little sweatsuit type deal for most people. But it was one of those days, real nice weather. So we walk in. The first thing you see once you walk in is about 4 or 5 food trucks got the first spot. You walk in some more, there are food trucks lined all up along the side, people selling merchandise. They had this little park area, sculptures to the side. They got the stadium area. There were live performers, groups singing old school, a good DJ, a host that had some personality. It was actually, saying some cool shit. It was a good time. It was a good time. I got to do better about informing people, but it was a good time. Me and baby girl enjoyed it. I saw that I ran across years ago and got a triple Maduro from him. And I did not get a card, and I didn't know, how to get in contact with him after that. He had a triple Maduro for people to smoke cigars. He had 3 different Maduro cigars intertwined, and that was his triple Maduro. Never really seen one like that before, but it smoked beautifully. A good cigar smokes even, holds the ash. It was a great cigar. The only mistake I made is the only mistake I made outside of only getting one. And for the price, maybe that is only a buying on one cigar, unless you just feel like balling. But the only mistake I really made was that's a cigar you should light up around other people because of just what it is. It's, as he said, a conversation piece. You want to light that up in a group, at the cigar lounge around, in a group, we all sitting around kicking it. Hey man, what's that? Blah blah blah. Where you get that from? Oh, what, blah blah blah. It's one of those because he knows if somebody sees that, they might be like, I want one of those. Things smoke beautifully, so I grabbed, an undisclosed amount of those, and because he was at this event, so He was at the event, so I grabbed, another one of those triple Maduros and a couple other things. And they had other merchants, but it was cool though. Barbecue spot, hibachi spot, couple of spots to serve jerk chicken. There was a ninja there doing seafood boils. When I tell you he made some money, he kept a line. Vegan truck. Truck that had beignets. Of course, there was somebody selling chicken because you can always sell chicken. And there was some other things, but that's all I can remember off the top of my head. But it was a good time, man. It was fun. Weather was nice, man. It was a good time. It was cool. The one funny note that I just took a little bit of pride in, it was hysterical to me. Again, Taste of Soul, black event for the most part. Of course, the others came there. I didn't see a lot of Hispanic people, but there were some there. But as I think about it, I don't think I saw a lot of Hispanic people there. Let me look back on it. Maybe some, man, but not really a lot. At any rate, I digress. But of course, there were, of course, Caucasians there. They always come to our events and we don't trip. It's a good time. But the one thing that was hysterical, there was really the first food truck you came across. And, me and baby girl was walking around. I was like, I need to grab something to eat, but I don't feel like standing in one of these long ass lines. Just for a relevant full disclosure, I'm not big on buying boils. The first time I had a boil, it was at the crib, and it was really done right. And I've done that a few times since. And I can't really, so I know most people that sell boils, they're extremely mediocre unless you're just really big on corn and potatoes. That's 2 starches at one time. I'm not going to do that. It's too much. I'm either going to eat potatoes or I'm going to eat corn. I can't eat both. If I eat potatoes or corn, then I can't eat the rest of the shit. I got to eat that like tomorrow or some shit. But that's too much starch in one sitting. But I was used to going to Sam's and getting those king crab legs. Some motherfuckers what John Norman's do. So this bullshit that they sell at the boil is too minuscule. And I do it too often to buy their overpriced shrimp. But anyway, point being that homie had a boil spot. He never slowed down. It looked like it was really just him. I don't know if he had to shut it down for a minute to get a break or something, but homie did quite well. But honestly, the cool thing about it, and they were checking you at the front. I just assumed they were checking, so I disrobed. But yeah, they made sure you didn't carry anything in. So it was, if anything popped off, it was going to be mano a mano. But it was a good time, though. Every food truck had a long line. But there's a caveat. Every food truck had a long line. So everybody that was there, every vendor did quite well. Every single vendor. I know homie selling those cigars did well. There was another cat selling cigars to the side, and he probably did quite well I'm assuming. That one food spot, it was in the corner, kind of away from everybody where vendors were, but people still found it. So people came there ready to spend and ready to eat and have a good time. The performers were good. People could actually sing. Side note, this is really tickled my daughter. There was one cat, young cat, that could dance like a motherfucker. When I tell you this ninja could dance, he could dance. And every time they started playing a good song, my man hopped on the stage and he was getting off. And the host was just hyping him up. Homie could go. This one of them cats that just stand out. Like there's no way he doesn't do something professionally. If not, he needs to. And the cool thing about it was he was a young cat and they were playing old songs and he knew all of that shit. I was like, there's hope. There's still hope. The other thing that was hysterical, as I spoke about all of the vendors and all of the food trucks and everybody had a long line, nothing but black vendors. Except there was one food truck, and I'm doubling up because I saw a quick pause. There was one food truck, because as I jumped off a story, as I normally do, me and baby girl are walking around, and I'm ready to grab a couple of drinks, get a cigar, sit around, enjoy the festivities, but I need to put something on my stomach. I needed to eat. So I was like, okay, let's grab something. She grabbed some beignets at the time, so she was good. I said, I need to grab something, but I did not feel like standing in one of those long-ass lines at the time. So I just want to grab something right quick. I saw one food truck, and there was nobody there. I said, there's nobody there. That could mean a couple of things. It could suck, or it could just be slow right now. Let's go over here and see what they got. I don't feel like standing in line. I just want to get a little something so I can, have a couple of drinks and whatnot, and then I'll get in the line and get something I actually want. Went over there. As we walked, I said, man, I wonder why nobody's over there. We looked around, the barbecue line's long, the line for the hibachi's long, it's in the same area. I looked up and I said, oh shit. It was a vendor and it was two Caucasians. And in a moment of possibly involuntary solidarity or maybe a lack of belief in their ability to cook, all of those ninjas, nobody bought any food from that cat. It was fucking hysterical. They just sat there with an empty ass. You know, I think I saw a tumbleweed go across the front of their food cart. Every other line was packed and nobody bought. I'm just laughing about shit that tickles me. It was funny as hell to me. They said there's too many black vendors here. I cannot spend money with you. Nobody went to their booth. I don't know why y'all came to the Taste of Soul. If you come to the Taste of Soul, you got to have some type of food that stands out. I think it was like burgers and fries. I don't know, maybe chicken sandwiches. But when I tell you there was nobody in their line, I was like, y'all really paid? No, there's absolutely no way they made back their vendor's fee to have the right to serve food in that area. Everybody else double, triple their money because them lines were long all damn day. But homie's line was a ghost town with tumbleweeds across it.
You must be on something.
That was a bad business decision, sir. But it was hysterical to me. It was an odd sign of unity. It was an odd sign of unity, if you ask me. I found it to be truly amusing. I said, baby girl, look at that food truck. They don't got nothing going on. I looked, I said, oh. I said, you know why? She said, why? I said, look. I said, white vendors. And we both started laughing. And we got another line. But it was funny. It was funny. But it was hysterical to me. But they did not get patronized. So every food truck was busy. Except that one. Except that one. That could be a combination of things. They probably just... Why I don't think why take a chance on your food? There are too many other options. But you know, fight the good fight.
Hang in there, whites. Hang in there, whites. Hang in there, whites.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. And time. Boy, if I see another goddamn glitch. Okay. I'll do quick intros and I'm going to jump right into it. This will not take long. This will not take long. All right. Let's do these intros and I'm about to jump right into it. Okay, with because I got to recap and everything. So with this one, well, I'll just get into it. The Q&A is limited. There are a couple of things and excerpts that are relevant, but the Q&A portion, there were a lot of things from Chairman Fred. There was a lot of verbiage and content, but there wasn't a lot of verbiage that was good, that had very clear audio, and there also wasn't a lot that I could turn into a Q&A. So I did what I could with that, but I have a decent amount of information that I can relay, but I couldn't necessarily play and put it in question and answer form. And there are also some significant things, especially concerning one particular aspect of his life. So I'll play those at one point. But again, man, the more you learn and the more you know. Again, I had some knowledge of the Black Panther Party, but I hadn't dug into it. But as a matter of fact, I'll do a recap when I get started, but just from where I started with Bobby Seale, went from there to Huey P. Newton. I'm going to do Fred Hampton today. Tomorrow is going to be Stokely Carmichael. And just with everything that I've learned, it just reinforces to me that if we were just a tad bit more informed about who we are and what we've done and the true history of the people, recent history of the people that were doing things when a lot of us were born, late 70s, we'd be so much better off because they couldn't push the same propaganda agenda and throw out the same cliches. But let's do intros, and then we're going to jump directly into this, starting with a recap and then jumping into the Black Panther Party series part 3 featuring Fred Hampton. I enjoy, again, this time of year that's considered dog days of the summer. And again, there's a lot going on with college basketball. I may get into that at the end of the show, possibly after tomorrow's show. NBA, not overly interested at the moment, maybe later, but again, it's not the game, it's the things around it. March Madness has been interesting. I will say my bracket took a Mike Tyson uppercut after my bracket took that Mike Tyson uppercut that you get after that left hook into the body. When he hits you with that left hook to the body, ducks your counter and comes up with that good night uppercut, or at least that I'm going to move differently from the rest of this fight forward uppercut. Things are real in that moment. Let me just say that. Things are real in that moment. Let's go ahead and do these intros. Let's do these intros. First man aboard the train, none other than Sluggo the motherfucking Hammer. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Georgia State alumni, big time Atlanta Falcons fan. And again, I'm also a Falcons fan now, but after the end of the season, when they completely, for lack of a better term, deniggerized the team, I don't know how I feel about my decision. But again, the second choice that I had, they got rid of one of the main reasons that I wanted to go with that team inexplicably without a real opportunity. He didn't go to a bad place. But again, there's a lot of football I'd like to talk about, some March Madness, but not today. And if I do, it would be towards the back of the show. But I digress. But again, after I decided to take on this team as a fan, they completely, again, for lack of a better term, deniggerized the team. Extremely upsetting. Extremely upsetting. I digress. We have none other than Sluggo the motherfucking Hammer. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. And I hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. Again, the Black Panther Party Series Part 3 started with Bobby Seale, continue with Huey P. Newton. Today we are going to cover Fred Hampton. And I must say, to the government of the US of A.
Motherfucker.
They looked at Fred Hampton and had one thought.
Who this nigga on that name?
I digress. Coming aboard the train, a man that was here for my very first show via evidence in the chat room. We give you none other. Well, before I get there, coming aboard with his usual, atypical, and traditional. Good evening.
Motherfucker.
We have none other than JBJ. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. We're not going to start like this. Sluggo said, Nick, you should have set up your booth of walking tacos. Okay, I'll do a quick reset. Nick is show folklore. I have the clip somewhere. It's really a quick reset. It's the annual bracket show that I still need to do. The annual bracket show. It was myself and baby girl. We did it every year except last year and maybe the last couple of years when she went to college. She is now a junior at Fisk, doing quite well. Thank you very much. But it came from that particular show, and Sports and Hills put in a chat. It was around the time when everybody had to wear masks, during COVID. And I can't remember the complete context, but it was my daughter. I had that somewhere, but my daughter cracked a joke on me saying it might have been, what was the we were talking about the way we set up the bracket and saying that we're not going to do a bracket based on something that she's not familiar with, or the chat or what we were talking about was something she didn't know about. And I was like, you really don't have an opinion on this, do you? She said, no. She said, I said, yeah, because if you spoke on something you're not knowledgeable about, you would be acting in the ways of a colonizer. And she said, yeah, you're right. And I'm no colonizer. I don't have that nose. And I died laughing, and I had to clarify to everybody, No, I said, do you want to tell everybody why that's funny? She said, yeah, my dad has a white nose. And I said, whoa, I do not have a white nose. And she went on to say, yes, I do. And all of you took great amusement in that, and y'all went in the chat room and had fun with it. Sports News put in a chat that when I take down my mask, I'm ninja until I take down my mask, hence exposing my nose. And then I'm Nick. That's why he calls me Nick. That shit happened like 6-7 years ago. That was a long time ago. That was, my daughter was young when that happened. But that happened at least 5 years ago, if not longer. That's why he's calling me Nick. The walking tacos thing is because the family reunion that I hosted, I had one of the things I served on Friday night was walking tacos. Hey, listen, man, nothing's wrong with walking tacos on Friday, just, when you're sitting around kicking it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like the Great Rough Buff, RIP. The Great Rough Buff, they had such a huge budget. They did a seafood boil on Friday night. But they charged, like, man, $100 for kids and $200 for adults or something like that, he told me. And then he told me about the ridiculous amount of people they had in their family. Man, I can't imagine what you could do with that budget. So, like Rough Buff described them having an entire floor of a hotel, like in Florida at a beach. And they had the whole floor. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that was a different vibe. But, but I'm just clarifying, that's where that joke comes from. Trust me, it's hysterical. At any rate, we got Chef McFeezy on the train. What's going on, Chef McFeezy? Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Big time Steelers fan. A lot of things I have to say about them. But again, that'll be a football episode. Sluggo said your green bean casserole would have been a hit. Wow. This is what we're doing, Sluggo. Sluggo said they left the venue. They left the venue saying black folks are racist for not buying their unseasoned food. Hey, man, it was really funny that nobody went there. Nobody went there. It was hysterical to me. McFeezy said Ninja talking round ball. Sir, I will not today, but I will discuss round ball when I'm not on this subject matter. If I get through this and we have time, and I don't anticipate it, but if I have time, yeah, I'll definitely do that. Definitely. But Ninja talking round ball, don't slow down.
Hey, slow down. Watch your speed.
McFeezy, Ninja talking round ball.
Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he fight your battles? Won't he make your enemies your footstool? Won't he give you joy in sorrow? Won't he give you hope for tomorrow? Won't he dry your tears? Won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he? Won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he?
McFeezy. No, from Sluggo. In February, we crossed 20 years as season ticket holders. It's been a long, tough ride, to say the least. Sluggo has been a loyal Falcon fan for 20 years. 20 años. Not only that, 20 years as a season ticket holder. So that means he was a fan probably longer than that. That is a long, tough road, sir. McFeezy said Falcons equals fans always looking and counting on next season. That is brilliant and so fucked up. Once again, McFeezy saying Falcons stands for, this is so wrong, fans always looking and counting on next season. Wow, Mac. Sluggo saying touche, Mac. That's funny, sir. That's funny. All right, man, let's get into it. To recap, I started out with Bobby Seale. I started out with Huey P. Newton, and what I found out is that the Black Panther Party was something founded for the people, something that they talked to the people about what they wanted to do. The Black Panther Party did nothing other than try to actually advance Black people other than puppet organizations like the NAACP, but I digress. The only thing they try to do is advance Black people from a political aspect, doing it within the framework of the system set up by the colonizers that they had a problem with. The only reason and the only rationale for them carrying weapons is that they were under attack. because the country, the government, literally attacked the Black Panthers for nothing other than providing for Black people. J. Edgar Hoover actually said the breakfast programs, the free lunch programs, and the free breakfast programs were one of the biggest problems, and it's something that they had to stop. Because if you can feed a people, you can lead a people. They were against Black people putting themselves up by their bootstraps, feeding themselves. And while being fed, they educated themselves. They educated them on who they actually were, the true history of the country. Free medical clinics for anybody that couldn't afford health care. The free food program for anybody that couldn't afford to eat and that needed something to eat. And I'm not going to use that new ridiculously goofy ass term where you might not even understand what's actually going on with the people. What's the dumb shit you're supposed to say now? What is? It's so dumb. It's hard for me to remember. Not food challenge, but it's almost something as dumb as that. Struggling with, you know what, I'm not going to bother, but it's unnecessary and they keep trying to soften shit. Say what things are, and if you say what things are, maybe people will understand what it is, feel the impact, and actually might want to do something about it. That's not me, that's George Carlin shit. But softening up these terms is ridiculous. But I discovered that the Black Panthers were nothing more than an organization that was lifting up and helping Black people because we needed that in a country where we're literally being hunted, and where we're the victim of a predator known as the U.S. government. Everybody else that comes here, when people do this false equivalence comparison, you don't factor in that none of those other people had to deal with the fact that the government hates them. There is documented evidence that the government hates us, and any group that has ever tried to do anything for us, they sabotaged it, calling it communism or terrorism and a threat to their way of life. You really have to listen to a threat to their way of life, and their way of life is keeping ninjas and or the majority of ninjas in an area where they feel they should be, unless they submit their soul and their very core and well-being to the way that they feel that they should be. So I discovered that every group and every person that has tried to uplift Black people in the system created by the people that stole the country were opposed by the country. And then they rewrote history and tell you you need to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, and everybody had the same opportunity. Everybody that came to this country received an economic floor. They gave us no economic floor after we were so-called freed. They did not free us. We freed ourselves, because if they didn't do it, we were just going to fucking kill them anyway. Might have been better if they didn't give us this fake bullshit about freedom and they just found another way to impose their will with slave laws. I digress. That's not what we're talking about today. Point is that every single situation when we were doing for ourselves, there was immediate government interference. Because if you're governed by the people that brought you here and that hate you, there's no way they're ever going to be impartial. If the Jewish people were under the rule of the Germans, shit wouldn't be rosy like it is right now. But it was just more acknowledgement and affirmation and reinforcement that everything that I had been taught was complete and utter bullshit, and the things that I should have been taught and should have been privy to and had access to was taken away from me by a country that says they don't see color. But let's get into it. Sluggo said, not to mention the crossing guards at schools protecting kids. And as Sluggo said, he believes that came from the Panthers. We talked about, Fred Hampton talked about a story where one of the first things that they did was protected. They stopped an intersection. They were armed. They weren't January 6th. They weren't shooting anybody, but they were armed. And they stopped the cars at the intersection so kids could cross safely, because kids were routinely hit at this intersection and the city said, we'll put up a stoplight in the next 5 years. No, in 5 years, we'll put up a stoplight. But a bunch of niggas being hit or a bunch of poor kids being hit is not really our concern. When the Panthers started protecting that intersection, the police came and started acting as crossing guards and allowing the kids to go, because we're not going to let these niggas, we're not going to let y'all do it and have that image. Now we'll pretend to be decent. Since y'all, we don't care the kids are being killed, but if y'all do it, we got to do it now because we can't have y'all do it. And when the police weren't around, they continued to do it. And so because of that, they put up the stoplight in 3 to 6 months as opposed to 5 years. All because they didn't want ninjas with guns doing for kids in the neighborhood. They didn't care about the kids being hit. So that's what that reference point is. Sluggo said food deserts? Question mark. I don't know if I misspoke or he didn't mean to put the question mark in it. But yeah, there were food deserts, people that weren't able to eat. So they had food programs. And I don't know if I misspoke. But again, and I wanted to emphasize, they didn't say black kids that needed to eat. The Panthers didn't turn anybody away. If there was anybody that needed medical care, they could come to the free clinic. They had free clinics. Slow down, I'm doing too much. They had free clinics because they wanted to take the profit out of healthcare. Because they said there are black doctors that are more concerned with profit than they are helping the people. That's why they invented free clinics. Why do you think these motherfuckers were at them? They weren't terrorists. They weren't threats. They were free health clinics for anybody that needed, not just black people. Same with the free food program. There was just no validity to anything that I've been taught. And to not be taught about them, but to be taught that all of these Caucasians that were low-life savages that I would have enjoyed killing if I was around at the time were the founding fathers and people that I should love because they built the country that I'm a part of, or whatever bullshit they taught me when I was a kid. This is so motherfucking infuriating. But I'm enjoying learning about the Panthers, or what I've learned about the Panthers, because what I knew before was just surface things, and that movie didn't do much. And I never watched the movie made about Fred Hampton, but I need to see it now that I have heard all these firsthand accounts of the story. I really need to see that now. But let's just go here. Let me my notes while you just running your mouth. Okay. I often talk about the reason I do the show is because I hate misinformation. So what I attempt to do is simply just tell the truth, which might spark or allow some people to be like, oh, I didn't know that. And anybody with any type of substance or intelligence would just take that device in your hand that's a computer and look it up. Oh, that's not a lie. Oh, that's interesting. Let me, do what comes naturally and continue to look at whatever may come from this information. As I always say, please check behind me. I'm not lying. I wouldn't insult you, or for me to sit here and come on here and just say things that are blatantly false, that means I think you're stupid. I'm insulting you. I'm wasting your time. I don't think you have the ability. Maybe it was easier back in the day, but you can verify anything nowadays. How dumb is it to come on air and say things you haven't verified? It's stupid. So I think it's important to dispel misinformation. I think that's our biggest obstacle. I think it's also important. Tupac said, I might not be the person to change things, but I guarantee I spark the brain, or at least spark the brain of the person that's going to spark the brain of somebody that does change things. If you don't see it, you'll never get to be it. There are so many little phrases. I think it's necessary for the truth to be spoken. Marcus Garvey, when I did some on Marcus Garvey and I studied him, Garveyism and the Garveyites, which was everybody that followed Marcus Garvey, who promoted Black independence, who created something that wasn't sponsored by America, so it wasn't sanctioned. The first FBI agents ever hired were to infiltrate Marcus Garvey's organization and sabotage it, which they did a good job of doing with misinformation, sending letters to people claiming to be Marcus Garvey, claiming to be this person, creating discourse, sabotaging the ships he got to create commerce and trade between Black people in Africa. That would have changed things. Imagine where we'd be now. But the point in all that is that Marcus Garvey and what he was doing and speaking his truth and doing for black people without permission from white people, which is not sanctioned, and that's why they attack any organization that they haven't sanctioned, because they want to keep us at a certain level. If not, they let us do what everybody else does. Point being that Marcus Garvey inspired the parents of Malcolm X. They were Garveyites. That influenced Malcolm X because of what his parents stood for and the things that he saw growing up. Malcolm X, taught by Elijah Muhammad, influenced Fred Hampton and Bobby Seale. Bobby Seale and Fred Hampton. I'm sorry. Bobby Seale sorry. Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton were influenced by Malcolm X. Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton influenced countless people, including Fred Hampton. It's all a cycle where there's some type of connection, but you can't have a connection if people aren't speaking the truth. And this is why I'm so frustrated with the common practice now of making things palatable for your opposition. Because if nobody's telling the truth, like Marcus Garvey, like Elijah Muhammad, like Malcolm X, like Farrakhan, like Bobby Seale, like Huey P. Newton, like Fred Hampton, like Stokely Carmichael, if nobody's telling the truth, who's going to be there to influence the next person? And if nobody's telling the truth, is the next person going to be influenced by one of these bitch ass niggas? You don't want people influenced by the Sheriff David Clarks of the world, by the Stephen A. Smiths of the world. Regardless of who he allegedly is, what you portray is what people see. What if instead of that person that's intelligent and engaging and able to corral people and get them to hear his perspective, what if that person's influenced by a fuck nigga? Now you have a whole nother set of problems. So you have to have people that are willing to speak the truth. It has to be some type of cycle, because in every situation, it led to the next individual. So that's something else I found interesting about history in itself. But again, let's just get into it. Fred Hampton, Chairman Fred, the chairman of the Black Panther Party for the state of Illinois. Born from Francis Allen Hampton and Iberia Beatrice Hampton. Ironically, or coincidentally, he was born in Louisiana. They were from Louisiana, much like Huey P. Newton, who was named after Huey P. Long, a former governor that was assassinated by another Democrat because he was doing things for black people and he wanted equality, during the Great Depression. So to fix what was going on in Louisiana. It was the Great Depression. People were fucked up. So he was going to promote things like a salary cap on people's income so everybody could kind of be equal and you could have a decent society. And he was shot for that. But at any rate, his father named Huey P. Newton after him. But ironically, they were actually from Louisiana. Much like Huey P. Newton's family to move to the West Coast to work at the shipping yards. That's good money, then and now. They went there for a better life. Fred Hampton's parents moved to Illinois for a better life. They moved to a suburb in Illinois called Maywood. A suburb again. So this is a black suburb in Illinois called Maywood. Both of his parents went to go work for the Argo Starch Company. So they worked at a factory. And as a result of his parents both working at this factory, at this time, they had a pretty good life. So I think it's notable to note that Fred Hampton grew up in what will be considered a privileged lifestyle, today or then. But in that time, he grew up in a privileged lifestyle. He was not a have-not. He was a had. He was living well. And that will be elaborated on a little bit later in the story. But I think that's important to note. He was in a position where he could have turned a blind eye, which is a common practice nowadays. There was not a lot of information on his father, no matter how much I dug. I only found out, that him and his wife moved there, and I know when he died. I have a little bit more on his mother that'll come into play a little bit later, but I will give one note along the lines of there being a lineage and things relating. And we talk about how people, when you grow up, everybody's a zero-sum proposition of their life's experiences, zero-sum proposition of your life's experiences. So you're affected by what you see growing up and who you're around and, who downloads their information on you. The mother of Fred Hampton, Iberia, used to babysit Emmett Till. So Fred Hampton's mother actually used to babysit Emmett Till. If Emmett Till was around the time that was alive around the time that Fred Hampton became notable, he would have been about 23 to 25 years old. If you're talking about the beginning of Fred Hampton's notoriety around 19 or so, by 23 years old. His mother used to babysit Emmett Till. So there was a connection when Emmett Till was killed by a bunch of ignorant, worthless ingrates that should have been hung up by their legs, chopped into pieces, and set on fire for the world to see. It was thought of as, I think Dave Chappelle characterized it as premium fuel for the civil rights movement. Now, and of course, she left the casket open because she wanted the world to see what they did to her son. But, not to drift off into that, the point is that as a young person, Fred Hampton, I'm not sure of his awareness at the time, but Fred Hampton and, of course, his mother and his parents were exposed to what happened to Emmett Till, which helped to foster, his thought process and the way he was raised throughout his youth. I'm sure that had an impact. So I found it interesting that his mother actually used to babysit Emmett Till. And again, I thought it very notable that Fred Hampton grew up in the suburbs, so he had a pretty good life. I think that's notable, and we'll elaborate on that just a tad bit later. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, Ed Ninja. The Black Panther series, Part 3, featuring the great Fred Hampton. So, again, much like Huey P. Newton, moving from southern state, Louisiana, to have a better life in Illinois, which they actually achieved. They did achieve by working at the Argo Starch Company. And again, I think it's notable that Fred Hampton grew up kind of nice. Let's just keep that in mind. And again, the connection with his mother being a former babysitter of Emmett Till, which means she was friends with his mother, familiar with the family, and obviously affected by the savagery that is one of the very few traditions that this country holds on to dearly: the mistreatment of Black people and the denial of it. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, Ed Ninja. Thank you for coming aboard and rolling with me. I truly appreciate it. Fred Hampton's early life. In high school, he was a standout athlete and a top-tier scholar. So he's incredibly intelligent and a great athlete, and actually very popular. Very popular. He went into pre-law at ABM. The yellow one would be familiar with this, Triton Junior College in River Grove. The only reason I've heard about Triton is because Corey Holcomb went to play basketball at Triton. He had a scholarship at Triton. That's the only reason I've even heard of the school. But Fred Hampton went to Triton studying pre-law. While at Triton, he became involved with the civil rights movement and joined the local branch of the NAACP. While joining the branch, because of his ability to communicate and his ability to relay his opinion and relate to people and engage and unite people, put him in a position where he became a president of the youth council. While president of the youth council, and we're talking about, at this point, Fred Hampton's probably 18 years old, 17 to 18, no older than 19, but I think at this point he's only about 18 years old. He organized a integrated group of kids, a racially integrated group, 500 students, and they successfully lobbied the city to create better academic services and recreational facilities for African American children. So not only did he get black students together, there were white students. He had people of all races together to lobby for the embetterment and better treatment of ninjas in school. So he had this in him early on, and I like to think that his parents and the experience with Emmett Till and just the way that, again, they were in a suburban area. They could have turned a blind eye to it, and maybe the Emmett Till thing just made it real. But I think it's notable that people in a position to turn not turn the other cheek, but turn the blind eye, rather, which so many people are happy to do today. They refuse to do so because what good is it if everybody else is in a bad position? But I found it notable that early on he showed his leadership skills and devised and/or created a multiracial group of people, 500 plus, to lobby for these changes, and was successful in doing so. So he understood, how, to a degree, a form of democracy could work. In 1968, and I believe at this point, I know he's 19, is when Fred Hampton joined the Black Panther Party. "19 years old, becoming chairman of the Black Panther Party for the state of Illinois. And I did hear about this. I can't remember when I first heard about this, but I did hear about this. The original Rainbow Coalition, the whole rainbow thing, it was actually something that Fred Hampton created. And I think maybe Jesse Jackson piggybacked, or maybe it was around the same time. And then, that community just kind of took it. But the original meaning of that and the reason for the name is the way Fred Hampton gathered different groups. So let's just get into this. So we saw his, where he came from, his parents, his background, the things he saw growing up, the ties with Emmett Till, the things he did as a college student where he could have just minded his own business, but because of the obvious problems in the enemy, he not only just went at it himself, he was able to engage different races, put that together, get something done, and see that work with everybody working together. So when he joined the Black Panthers, one of the things that he did as a 19-year-old, maybe in his early 20s, the Rainbow Coalition was because he organized the Black Panthers, the Young Patriots, which were white Southerners, the Young Lords, which were Puerto Ricans, and an alliance amongst Chicago street gangs. So he managed a truce amongst Chicago street gangs and managed to unify a white group called the Young Patriots, which were white Southerners. Think about that shit. The Young Lords, which were Puerto Ricans, and they all organized to work together because of what he understood the problem to be. And that was a system that was against poor people. He was doing the one thing the government fears against anything, uniting everybody that should actually be fighting the government, because technically speaking, we're all in the same boat. Even though there is a history and there are things that cannot be just talked away or dismissed, but that's not where we're at right now. But I think it's notable that, again, the original Rainbow Coalition was what Fred Hampton did by uniting these groups and organizing the gang truce so we can work on the real problem, which is the policies that are against us and these pigs. So I found that notable about Fred Hampton. And again, This is a 17. This man only lived to be 21. And he started doing all these things at the age of, I want to say 17, no later than 18. What this man did in less than 5 years. Absolutely incredible. And again, we'll get there when we'll get there. We'll get there. This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy that Ninja. I'm going to let me keep up with chat. I'm going to read chat and then I'm going to continue. But again, I think it's notable that I don't want to keep repeating it, but I think it's very notable. Just think about the way things are now. I think now, unfortunately, and some of it's due to the conditions that we're in. I get it to a degree. But a ninja that's comfortable, is happy to be comfortable, and quite frankly, we've gotten to the point, despite the contradictions to Christian values, a lot of ninjas that are in a good position are more than happy to say, fuck everybody else as long as I'm good. And again, without, as my pop told me, when you're doing wrong, you feel that shit right in here. Something in here shouldn't allow you to do that shit. Something in here should not allow you to do that shit. You should feel something. But, point being that so many cats now are more than willing to do that. It's a coveted position. And Fred Hampton and his entire family was in a position to do that. And they didn't. I think that's notable. But let's go ahead and get into the chat, and then I'm going to continue. We have a little bit of Q&A. And as we're doing the Q&A, I'm going to clarify on some things just so we fully understand what he's saying. And again, I found it interesting that a lot of the things that I've heard growing up, sad to say, I'm just not really looking up what they mean and finding out his political position and what he was opposed to and what he was promoting. And as I looked it up, I said, well, damn, that makes sense. But him desiring this and promoting this made this government label him a terrorist and a threat to our way of life. They've never done that for any of these white groups that have a problem with that, with us, because fucking with black people is an American tradition. They don't have a lot, but fucking with us is one of the very few things that they stay true to. Liberty, justice for all, and all that bullshit, that's a goddamn lie. It always has been. If anybody isn't brain dead and or deaf, dumb, stupid, blind, short, some type of immediate memory loss where you don't remember what happened, I don't know, yesterday. But let's read the chat. The walking taco thing is still funny. Starting right here. Coming aboard the train to his usual bomb drop for slapping the sauce out of his wife's hands when she tried to apply it to my ribs. True story. None other than the great Sidney Jackson.
Amen, preacher!
Okay, see one thing I'm slipping on. The great Sidney Jackson, thank you for coming aboard, sir. Let me fix something. Because we're talking about the great Fred Hampton. Chef McFeezy saying food inequality. McFeezy, it's something like that, but it's even dumber. It's even dumber than that. Gabriel Iglesias was talking about it in one of his stand-ups. It's even dumber than food inequality, but it's something almost as dumb as that. But I don't like when, if I have to think about what you're describing, you're taking all the meaning and all the pain out of the words. And being a black man in America, I can't relate to complaints about verbiage. You can ignore physical shit that we're dealing with, but you want to be sensitive about verbiage depending on who the verbiage is directed towards. I digress. Sluggo said, God forbid you have the wherewithal to defend yourself or your people. They will find a way to burst into your house in the wee hours of the morning and kill you while you're in bed with your pregnant wife. And again, I don't want to get there too quickly, but preach, sluggo, and America's motto is and has always been. America says that loud and clear. There's just, boy, I tell you that. Looking at this and digging into it and finding a few things finally that, after so much, I was like, oh shit, here's what I was looking for. I could only come to one conclusion, that America has one motto that holds true above all else.
I hate niggas, bro. I hate niggas, bro.
You know what? I'll move on. That's still not enough. But yeah. And again, to reinforce this, after researching this, I think they arrested Bobby Seale after he came to Chicago and spoke at a gathering for the Panthers that Fred Hampton introduced him. White reporter reported that, and I'll get into that they had about 16 pieces of duct tape on his mouth, had his hands tied or handcuffed to like his thighs, trying to shove things down his mouth before his mouth was taped, abusing him the entire time. Because he didn't stay within the confines and the box that America thought he should be in. But everything I learned about the Fred Hampton story, for lack of a better word, just reinforces this soundbite.
I don't like fucking cops. I don't like fucking cops.
J. Edgar Hoover.
You will be discarded in the prisons of hell.
I digress. And I didn't see this before I said it. Sluggo said the Panthers were a true rainbow coalition. I wouldn't be surprised if the late Jesse Jackson patterned his program based on what the Panthers were doing. You're probably right, because I think the Panthers were the first to do it, but they can't teach us that, because if they do, you're going to research it and then, oh shit. And again, they're making it illegal now because it's so accessible. You can look it up now. It's easy. You don't have to go to the library and find the book. I can just find the books just like that. I can look up one thing and another thing and another thing. I can find video, interviews. The way you can research now is so easy, so there's no excuse to not be informed. There's just no excuse. You don't even have to go to the library. Just use that phone for something other than liking negative videos about ninjas. Let me move on. Mac Feasy said the Panthers exposed the hypocrisy of the American system and embarrassed America by detangling the myth and lies. The government couldn't have that. So Hoover came up with the COINTELPRO to discredit the Panthers. 1,000% true. 1,000% true. Hoover and the government saw what the Panthers were doing, and they had one thought.
Hey, slow down. Watch your speed.
And they channeled their inner ancestral spirit and thought to themselves,
I hate niggas, bro. I hate niggas, bro.
And they continued to act in the ways that they've always acted.
Hope those white bitches get tear gassed.
America's so worried about black folks. America's so worried about black folks. America's so worried about black folks.
Coming aboard the train saying deep space. We have none other than the yellow one, Dr. J. Julius Irvin, Ron from a different world, Bird from Bird and the Midnight Falcons. We have none other than ABM on the train. What's going on, sir? Thank you for coming aboard, and I hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. Sluggo said, yep, Mac, exposing America's hypocrisy was always on the forefront. Mac Feezy said, notice that when black people stand united, the government deems us as domestic terrorists. Let's read that again. Notice that when black people stand united, the government deems us as domestic terrorists. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. That's very important. And let me go ahead and give you one of these. When we're referring to there's some things you need to make sure that you mention when you're discussing. They always say they. Let me not be. I hate when people just say they. Uninformed victims of psychological warfare or self-hating, vindictive and or evil ninjas always say things like, we have to do better. They did this. How come we, Jewish people used to do this and now they got to own all this? How come we can't do that? Because the government doesn't hate Jewish people and white people aren't worried about Jewish men fucking their daughter. Why can I say that? Because I believe in backing up what you say. The things that I've just talked about in these first two series and what we're about to talk about with COINTELPRO and Fred Hampton, I can verify that the government hates black people. And anytime, from Marcus Garvey to Malcolm to Martin to Huey to Bobby Seale to Fred Hampton to Stokely Carmichael to Medgar Evers, any ninja that has ever tried to uplift us without their permission is attacked. Like Matt Feasy said, anytime we're united, we're labeled domestic terrorists. I think if you're knowledgeable about the history, you won't be, because if you don't know the history, the only thing left to do is blame yourself. But if you do that, then you're doing it without the knowledge that every time that we've gotten together, the government has interfered. Who else do they do that to? And it's not a goddamn excuse to bring that up. It's knowledgeable, because if you don't know your history, you're doing to repeat it. So the next time we get together to do anything, you're going to understand the government is going to interfere because they're fucked up like that. And if you don't know that, you're not prepared for all of their bullshit, it's going to fall apart again. So to not mention it is unintelligent, because you're only doing it at the behest of the problem. And that is not your narrative. If you research, that's why I say don't get taught, learn. And if somebody tells you something, research it. And if you do, you may find out that the origin of that information was not even for you. I'm sorry, that chat, my bad. Chat. But preach, Mac Feezy. We got 334 on the train. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Thank you for coming aboard. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. Sluggo said, good information on his mother being a former babysitter of Teal. Yeah, I found that interesting. And I'm like, man, the shit's crazy, because everything that I've researched, there's some connection that I just spoke about before. And it's crazy to me. Sydney said the message was too long. I had to break it up. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I'm about to read it now. Sydney Jackson said, I saw a disappointing thread on Twitter this morning in response to some of the comments made by D-list celebrities. Some said, why are y'all so mad at, quote, insert unimportant celebrity name when the Democrats haven't passed any meaningful legislation? The sad part is many a black person running to the defense of the Dems stated the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act. Those two laws happened over 60 years ago. Again, Sidney preached, you're speaking about something that's 60 years old. And on top of that, Bobby Seale said the Civil Rights Act was half of a victory. The Civil Rights Act was half of a victory, and the Panthers being able to put some political candidates in position was only half a victory. He said this because the Civil Rights Act, he said, was only half a victory because that document and that piece of paper doesn't change the mentality of racist white people. He said that in the goddamn 60s. And I've said that just based on common sense. Laws passed in dumbass discussions, and in some cases, it's just being misinformed. In some cases, it's psychological warfare, the result of that. In some cases, it's a slow IV drip of information, of misinformation that you get that throws your brain off. But in some cases, it's willful ignorance. Let me say that again. In some cases, it's willful ignorance when you don't address the actual issue when talking about our issues. When you're talking about a problem and you're not addressing the actual issue. You don't change the mentality of these people through voting. They're still raised fucked up. And a vote isn't going to change a bunch of people that were raised fucked up and they got a fucked up sense of morality. And again, I can say this because of the actions. I don't have to make up anything. I don't have to yell over anybody. I don't have to lie. I don't have to misrepresent myself or anybody that I'm talking to in the chat room to make myself look better in the moment. I can calmly tell facts and back up everything I'm saying. And that's all I ask of anybody that has an opinion. But most people won't dig into that. And when it becomes time to hold the people accountable that needs to be held accountable, you find a way to bring them back around and talk about yourself. And that is a white narrative. Sydney's second part. Surely if the Dems are so great to us, these folks should have been able to name something that has happened more recently than 60 years ago. How about that? If you're going to be stomped down for the Democratic Party and the only thing you can talk about is the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Act, something that happened 60 fucking years ago, what are you talking about? That is the American way. Slow, disrespectful, bullshit progress that makes us comfortable. And if you complain, we'll accuse you of being what we are and what we have no intention of changing. And the verbiage might not make them change, but you're not going to make them change by acquiescing, bending over, capitulating, and turning a blind eye to that bullshit. That's not going to help. Not at all. Sluggo said Fred Hampton was a true galvanizer of people. He was going to be a real problem for the uneducated, dumb whites who solely relied on propaganda as their primary weapon. I just can't short y'all. I can't short y'all. I can't. Preach. ABM, great point. ABM said this site sucks. It censors the most benign chat. Shaking my head. It does. You have to reformulate your words and be very articulate. I really want to take this over to YouTube, which you can get away with saying more there. I know way more than this shit. I really want to take it over there, but it seems like it's a problem for people to get on that particular link. I don't know if it would be easier on Facebook, but I've discussed this a couple of times. One show I probably need to be very it's not deliberate, but I need to be very assertive about which site we're going to be on because of this chat room and its restrictions. Perhaps we should just meet on the YouTube channel and give that a go, or Facebook for that matter. But we can go somewhere where we can probably find a way to express ourselves better. And I apologize for the frustration that may be causing. I've taken off any restrictions and anything that I was able to do on my end, but apparently that doesn't stop the censoring of chat on this site. So my apologies for that. Sluggo said, these ninjas feel special that they were chosen by the white capital. Sadly, they use their wealth to chase skirts and or boy bussy. Once again, these ninjas feel special that they were chosen by the white capital. Sadly, they use their wealth to chase skirts and/or boy bussy. Preach, sir.
Amen, preacher.
Who raised you? Who raised you?
Facts, sir. Facts. And it's a normal occurrence at this point. It's a coveted position at this point.
What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you?
ABM said, Bulls wave Jaden Ivey for comments about the confectionery sugar people. Let's see if that gets through this sensitive chat police. That is absolutely crazy. I'll address that after the fact, but again, you can do whatever you want to a ninja, and America ignores it. And everybody that claims to be a good human being, and at any rate, they ignore it because they don't give a goddamn. But verbiage against moist people, verbiage against Caucasians, verbiage against alleged Jews draws criticism. Ninjas being harassed, shot, wrongfully jailed, wrongfully accused, lied on, having their character assassinated. When you're dealing with a group of people that don't give a goddamn about you and have a natural hate for you when you don't behave in a manner that they feel is efficient, why would it ever be corrected? And again, for the people it doesn't apply to, then I'm not talking to you. But you can't deny that those people exist. Slugger said, wow, ABM, I just saw that. Didn't know if it was over that. Sidney Jackson said, ABM, them Rainbow Warriors got that man on up out of there. And again, doesn't really make sense to me, but okay, whatever. ABM said, Sid Jack, his mama gonna catch some heat from her employer because he talked about the gutter belief too. Sidney said, damn dumbass boy gonna get his mama fired. I'm not sure what the hell they talking about right there. JBJ, you know what's funny? The funny thing about it is, I was thinking about Andor about to play that soundbite, and you asked for it, so now it's justified. But thank you for being on point and being.
You hear you? I hear you.
Hysterical, sir. And this is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy there, Ninja. We're about to continue with Fred Hampton, and we have a lot to get into. So allow me to continue. But before I do, JBJ said,
white people have never been clean. Not now, not ever. White people have never been clean. Not now, not ever.
okay, let's go here. And this is going to be the portion where we're going to have some limited soundbite time. But honestly, the interview portion is pretty short. So quite frankly, I should be able to get through this and then get back into regular programming. So let's get into it, and let's go here. Chairman Fred often said, I'm a revolutionary. Just to be clear, a revolutionary is an individual advocating or participating in radical fundamental change, typically in political, social, or technological systems. These figures are defined by their rebellious, idealistic, and often influential nature. So a revolutionary is nothing more than somebody promoting radical and fundamental change. And that is a proper description because radical and fundamental change is necessary when you're dealing with a group of people that hate you, won't admit that they hate you, but continue to perpetrate acts against you that show the hate. And any time that opposition has formed, that wasn't presented in a package that they approved of, you're met with the full weight of this psychotic and unbathed government. So again, to be clear, a revolutionary is an individual advocating or participating in radical, fundamental change, typically in political, social, or technological systems. These figures are defined by their rebellious, idealistic, and often influential nature. That describes Fred Hampton to a T. Somebody that is committed to overturning the established structures, proposing new and often unconventional systems or ideas. It's going to be unconventional when the system is designed to not give a damn about you. That's going to be very unconventional to somebody that has a system designed that has a certain goal in mind. Being engaged in active resistance or promotion of rapid systematic change. That is absolutely Fred Hampton. That is absolutely Fred Hampton. Focused on altering social structures, values, or norms. I think all of this describes Fred Hampton and what he was trying to do. He was absolutely a revolutionary. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, that Ninja. Let's get into a short Q&A with Chairman Fred because of the way that his audio was structured. And there was some audio where he was speaking with news people, but the entire time they were trying to get him to speak negatively about another black group and kept asking him to reshoot and redo the question so they could edit it a certain way. And he was so intelligent, he wouldn't allow them to do it. He continued to elaborate on everything he had to say, which never allowed them to edit it the way they wanted it to make it look a certain way. So the media was trying their best to create a conflict between black groups instead of focusing on the issue. But again, that was just one aspect. Because there's a relevant point to the media that I want to get into. But allow me to continue. Let's go here. If I was privileged enough to ask Chairman Hampton. Now, we've already talked about the Rainbow Coalition, him uniting different groups, what he did in college. And again, that was not just black people. He united multiple people and multiple groups in a unified effort to get something done that was just simply the moral thing to do. So with that information, this is kind of a dumb question to a degree, but I'll ask anyway. Chairman Fred, the government, namely cross-dressing orifice lubricating J. Edgar Hoover, has accused the Black Panther Party of being a racist organization. What do you have to say to that?
We're not a racist organization because we understand that racism is an excuse used for capitalism, and we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism.
So as he said, he understands what that is. And just to clarify, capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership of capital, meaning assets, voluntary exchange, and competitive markets, where production and pricing are driven by the pursuit of profit. It promotes innovation, efficiency, and economic growth through consumer choice and competition, but can lead to income inequality and market failures. And the latter is what it actually leads to. Capitalism is essentially what this country promotes. But if you look at what we have, as I talk about the Panthers and their free health clinics, through capitalism, they've monetized whether you're worth saving or not. And the government is so corrupt, nothing is being done about that. The reason why Fred Hampton had a problem with capitalism is because capitalism, as he said, causes black doctors to not care about helping people. They're concerned with profit. There has to be some type of structure or barriers to where money overrides taking care of people because I don't want to pay for said test. It has to override, I'm going to overcharge for this particular medicine that you can go somewhere else and get for not even a tenth of the price, less than that. There has to be something in place to prevent that. So these words have always been weaponized, but I noticed as I look back on this, as I'm looking at this and I wanted to make sure that we were exact on what he was talking about, or I wanted to make sure I was exact. So capitalism, all that. I said, you know what? I can't define capitalism. Let me go get a definitive definition. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, I see where he's coming from. So a lot of these terms were weaponized, but as I often talk about, people don't clarify on what they're saying. These words were weaponized. I've always heard that phrase, he's a socialist. But you're not saying what a socialist is. And when I looked it up, I'm like, what's your issue with that? They'll weaponize a word, but not tell you what it means, because if they do, they sound stupid. That's why I always say you should make people explain themselves and what they're saying and where they got it from and what's their origins and why they're saying that. Because if they can't tell you that, it's not their original thought, and they're speaking out of nothing more than ignorance. And out of respect for yourself, you shouldn't listen. But again, capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership of capital, voluntary exchange, and competitive markets where production and pricing are driven by the pursuit of profit. So there is a downside to things being strictly based on profit. You end up with a lot of the problems that we have now via the medical system, via insurance companies, doing everything in their power to give you the least amount of money possible. You pay us monthly, but we're doing everything we can to not pay you. And that's been allowed to fester and run amok like a venereal disease on a college campus. That's where your so-called government should step in to stop shit like that. Not to say ninjas are making too much money in sports. Let me write a bill to stop that. There are way more important things going on. If the government wanted to, again, capitalism, they could easily make it more profitable or make it easier to build things here instead of structuring things to where a company makes more money going overseas. Structure it to where they're penalized for that. And then they'll have companies here, and that will create jobs. They could easily manipulate things to work their way. They just choose not to. Why? A capitalist system. So as I thought about this, I'm like, it actually makes sense. But let's just continue. And along the lines of being accused of being a racist organization, if you had to clarify, just short answer, if you would, Chairman Fred, who would you say is the enemy of the party?
We don't hate the motherfucking white people. We hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. We gonna fight.
Again, very short answers in some of these, but again, the Panthers were accused of being a threat to their way of life, and their way of life includes fucking with black people, and they weren't having that, so that affects the way of life. And how can you call the Panthers a racist organization? The only thing that they ever did was say they have guns, and the image of black people with guns was enough to panic America, but that's dumb because there's nothing more dangerous than psychotic-ass white people with guns. I can say that out loud with my chest because I know the history of the country and the present condition of the goddamn country. It's a motherfucking fact. That just looking back on it, I know why they had that propaganda of getting rid of guns, because I don't got time to go there. But just knowing what I know now, that whole get rid of guns campaign, you evil motherfuckers. Yeah, you should get rid of them, but we aren't the ones that they should be taken from. Not at all. There is a group that should be disarmed. It's not us. We should have all the guns in the world. We're in a hostile environment. Chairman Fred, can you tell me a political goal of the Black Panther Party?
Nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
So Chairman Fred believed that stopping fascism was important, and he felt that fascism would stop us all. And again, I'm not familiar. I'm not educated. Fascism is a far-right authoritarian and ultra-nationalist political ideology that emerged in early 20th century Europe. Stop right there. Anything that came from early 20th century Europe is a goddamn problem. Characterized by dictatorial power, centralized autocracy, militarism, and the forcible suppression of opposition. Oh, shit. The forcible oppression of opposition. The government considers the Panthers opposition. They were forcibly oppressed. Marcus Garvey, forcibly oppressed. Malcolm X, Dr. King, forcibly fucking killed. Fred Hampton assassinated, I'm sure you know, but we're going to get there. That sounds a lot like what's going on right now, fascism. Fred Hampton said fascism will kill us all. A far-right authoritarian and ultra-nationalistic political ideology that emerged in early 20th century Europe. Red flag. Characterized by dictatorial power, centralized autocracy, militarism, and forcible suppression of opposition. It prioritizes the nation or a specific race above individual rights, striving for national rebirth and total state control over society and the economy. Once again, it prioritizes the nation or a specific race above individual rights, striving for national rebirth and total state control over society and the economy. I've always heard these words thrown around. I actually didn't know what the fuck they meant. And again, thinking about how they were weaponized, but they weaponized the words and labeled them as something, but they never defined the fucking word, because if they did, then trying to like use it or weaponize it to attack someone's character wouldn't be possible. Again, this all falls into the don't get taught, make sure you learn thing. But I say fascism is alive and well. I say fascism is alive and well. And as I spoke about earlier, Chairman Fred, you, quite frankly, you grew up kind of nice. Why did you feel it necessary to fight for the people, even care, when you had the ability to just kind of live in your world and be comfortable? Why was it important to you at all?
You're afraid of yourself. If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of...
I apologize. I didn't allow that to finish. When he got done talking about fascism, he said the answer to that is socialism. And he said if you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself. So let me go back, because I want to talk about socialism. And that's the one that white people always throw out, but they never even define it. Socialism is an economic and political system advocating for collective or government ownership of the means of production, aiming to reduce inequality. Again, reduce inequality. And provide for common welfare rather than profit. This is way too moral. It prioritizes equality, economic cooperation, and public control over resources. Well, we can't have that, because they can't control the haves and the have-nots and what you can and can't do if you do that shit. So when you hear people screaming about socialists and this person is a socialist, I fail to see what's wrong with that. That doesn't mean that you can't live and you can't do well, but what it means is some asshole can't buy a medicine that could save a lot of people and jack the price up 5,000% with a smile on his face. That's what it would stop. What the hell's wrong with that? It would stop hospitals saying if you don't have X amount of... It would stop insurance companies from fucking you sideways with no lubrication when it comes to your health. With no face or nothing you can touch or grab or put hands on, there's no accountability. You don't know who you should choke out or criticize or send an angry email to, or something that would be more appropriate if you have the opportunity to do so. You don't know who to do that to. So all of the, I think the socialism, a structure of socialism would work to prevent things like that from happening. So again, when I hear what he was promoting and what he believed in, it all actually makes sense, especially when you're considering this was actually happening in the 60s. And you can relate it now, but in the 60s, especially for black people, well, for black people, this was especially important. But again, he wasn't speaking solely to or for black people. He was literally talking about poor people because he had the intelligence to understand that if poor people were together of all races, then you could actually overcome this issue. Chairman Fred, why are guns necessary for the party?
With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism. What we're talking about is there has to be educational program. That's very important because if they don't have this.
My apologies, I'm getting the questions mixed up. This is Chairman Fred discussing the importance of political education. And again, I think this is important because we're not politically educated now. If we were, we would hold politicians accountable. Instead, we defend them blindly and scream at people who simply ask questions. Again, voluntarily practicing or participating in willful ignorance. And that's becoming far too normal.
They know where. You dig what I'm saying? They know where because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we have Negro imperialists.
So again, he's saying if you're not politically educated, if you're not educated, period, if you don't have a sense of history, a sense of self, if you are at a church and all that money comes through, you're going to find a way to steal it and ask for a private jet. Or you're going to send young men presents so you can rape them later on in life. No RIP. You're going to become a politician and work for yourself and your profit as opposed to work for the people. Everybody I'm talking about worked for the people and were brutally attacked by the government and the pigs. Politicians nowadays work for self or simply are happy to be in a position. Sadly, most black people are happy just for them to be in that position, regardless of what they do or what they don't do while in said position. So all of this is an issue. And again, it goes back to what Bobby Seale said, and I don't know if I finished it. Civil rights was half a victory because you don't change the morals and the poor upbringing of white people with documentation. And putting political people in position, black political people in position, was half a victory because he said half of them aren't worth a goddamn. That's not the word he used. He was very nice. But he said half of them ain't worth a damn. Now, he said at least 95% of white politicians ain't worth a damn either, but at least half the black politicians, this was then. I say more than half now, but he said half the black politicians back then weren't worth a damn, so putting them in office was only half a victory because they weren't going to do anything for you. He understood that in the 60s. If you bring it up now, you met with opposition from people that aren't educated, aren't politically educated, aren't willing or even capable of having a discussion about it. They're only capable of defaming people, lying, spilling misinformation, things they learn from the people that they should oppose. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. So let's continue because this is a very short Q&A. At this point, why did you feel it necessary, or why did you still feel a need to, quite frankly, put yourself in harm's way, even though you grew up, quite frankly, kind of nice and privileged to a degree?
Me, myself, I was born in a so-called bourgeois community and had some of the better things you could see in life. And I found that there was more people starving than there was people eating. And I found that more people didn't have clothes than they did have clothes. And I found that I just happened to be one of the few. And I made a commitment to myself that I wouldn't stop doing what I'm doing until all those people are free.
So again, in the audio was a little jacked. What he was saying was, he said, I grew up in a so-called bourgeois neighborhood. I was doing pretty well. I ate good and all of that. And I come to discover that I was one of the very few as opposed to the many. I was doing okay, but that was few and far in between. And I decided then and there I wasn't going to stop what I was doing until everybody was free. That's a real man. That you're going to tell me that this motherfucker's the enemy of the country? He's the enemy of what this country wanted black people to be. So you really have to be careful when there's somebody that they actually promote. Let me say that again. if you think about this country and what they've done, you really have to be careful when there's somebody that they promote or that they allow to be in certain positions. Because anybody that gives a damn about us at all, they vilify, which is why it's so important that I think if we understood the history, we would disregard the opinions and the words of anything this government or this country has to say, and we should. And such is not the case. As a matter of fact, it's almost the opposite. To this day, again, I still hear people say things like, if they continue to say it in the news, there has to be some truth to it, which means no matter what these people do, whether it be subconsciously or not, you look at these motherfuckers as your God, and God is infallible. So no matter what they do, there's no criticism from you. And the shit's wild, but I digress. At this point, Chairman Fred, can you tell me why it's necessary for the party to have guns?
We need some guns. Black people need some peace. White people need some peace. If we are going to have to fight, we're going to have to struggle. We're going to have to struggle relentlessly to bring about some peace, because the people that we're asking for peace, they're a bunch of megalomaniac warmongers, and they don't even understand what peace means. So we've got to fight them. We've got to struggle with them to make them understand what peace means.
Again, we need guns and we have to fight and struggle because the people we're fighting against don't know what peace is. Not because we want to be, not because we're radical, not because, whatever bullshit y'all want to push about us being a group that promotes war. We have no choice because of our opposition. We'd like to just use the system. We're a political party. But if you don't allow us to do that, we have no choice. And just for clarification, he said we're up against a bunch of megalomaniacs. Megalomania is an obsession with power. Let me say that again. Megalomania is an obsession with power, extreme self-importance, and delusional fantasies of omniscience or supreme ability. Omniscience is being all-knowing. You know every goddamn thing. Having supreme ability, extreme self-importance, delusional fantasies, obsessed with power. Who the hell does that sound like? So again, he was describing these people perfectly. A bunch of megalomaniacs, which is why we have to have weaponry, because these are a bunch of crazy-ass megalomaniacs that have a deep-rooted hate for black people. Poor people to a degree, but I'm talking about black people right now. So again, understanding the verbiage and what he was saying, it makes all the sense in the world. And getting ready to wrap up this very short Q&A. Chairman Fred, sir, you're only 20 years old, 21 years old. Why take on this responsibility? Why not just live life?
Like we always did, if you actually make a commitment at the age of 20, and you say, I don't want to make that commitment, only because of different reasons that I'm too young to die, I want to live a little bit longer. What you did already. I'm saying something that might wake up some other exploited people.
My apologies. Let that go a little bit longer. So, and this isn't the last thing, but this is the last thing in the interview. Let me just go ahead and get this out the way now. Chairman Fred, please explain why you're a target of the U.S. government. And the beginning of this was just him saying, I'm a target because, and he's going to continue. And I think it's notable, and I'm going to clarify on this shortly. This is him speaking in court where he was representing himself. When he was accused, this is when they locked him up and accused him of robbing an ice cream truck, beating up an ice cream truck driver. And there are a lot, and you know what, I'll talk about it after I play this clip. But there are a lot of little things about that case as well, and I'll talk about those right after I play the clip. But he was accused of assaulting an ice cream truck driver, and we'll just pick it up from here. But he actually said this in the courtroom.
All these people and some other oppressed people, and if all these people
them to get together, then these pigs that are exploiting us, we'll be able to run them into the lake. That's why they want to get rid of us. I don't believe I'm gonna.
Still messing up. One more. And this is Chairman Fred at I believe he was 21 when he said this. He was 20 or 21 when he said this. I believe 21. Again, 21 years old. 20 to 21 years old when he said this. And he wasn't asked this, but I'm going to pose it as that. He had the wherewithal to say this then, speaking about his mortality and how he thought he was going to die. So when he started out, he said, I don't believe I'm going to die. I stopped the tape a little too late, so I just want to get that part out. But in Chairman Fred's words, how he thought he was going to leave the planet.
Slipping on a piece of ice. I don't believe I'm going to die because I got a bad heart. I don't believe I'm going to die because of lung cancer. I believe that I'm going to be able to die in the thing that I was born for. I believe that I'm going to be able to die high off the people. I believe that I will be able to die as a revolutionary in the international revolutionary protest struggle. Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people?
That boy is good.
And the government accused this man of being a threat to their way of life. And that wasn't a lie because their way of life includes the mistreatment of black people. So it was true to a degree, but he was not an enemy of the country.
You liar! You lying bitch. This motherfucker's lying. You lying motherfucker, stop.
Lubricated Hoover. This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy that Ninja. Now, the trial, when Fred Hampton went to court, he defended himself. And this is what I wanted to say. Media and the law and everything was slightly different. It's always been bullshit, but the media was a tad bit different because there was a lot of footage of the media people actually digging for the truth. You don't even get that nowadays. When they murder a ninja, everybody pretends to be a dumb, ignorant, blind motherfucker. Nobody wants the goddamn truth. They kept asking questions trying to find the truth. I found that interesting. In the trial that he ended up going to jail for, the jury found him not guilty. The jury found him not guilty. They didn't show this part, but I'm assuming the judge just said, well, blah, 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 they're wrong. Nigga go to jail for 2 years. The jury found him not guilty. There's no footage of what happened after that, but I know he went to jail, but he didn't lose the trial. So again, this is never about the American way. He defended himself. They came back with a jury, a verdict of not guilty. He went to jail anyway. And just to clarify on one more thing. Make sure I'm not wrong on this. Chairman Fred referred to himself, I believe, as a Marxist-Leninist at some point. And I just wanted to clarify on that before I continued. Before I got to the even more infuriating part of the story that I'm sure people are anticipating and are talking about. But Marxism-Leninism is a far-left communist ideology that combines Karl Marx's theories of class struggle with Vladimir Lenin's strategies for revolutionary and party organization. It advocates for a vanguard party to lead a revolution, establish a dictatorship of the proletariat, and manage a centrally planned economy to transition towards a classless society. So he wanted to have a classless society, no more haves and have-nots. These are the things that the government and that people label as terrorist or anti-American activities. So just to clarify on that. This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy That Ninja, doing the Black Panther Party Series Part 3, speaking about Chairman Brother Fred Hampton. Before I jump into the chat, in 67, Fred Hampton was 19 in 67. The FBI identified Hampton as a radical threat. And I'm not going to use the bullshit language that they use. They then decided to assassinate, attack, and destroy the Black Panther Party. And they had already had this going, but they identified Hampton as a threat and wanted to implement the same COINTELPRO tactics they were using against Bobby Seale that they were using against Brother Huey P. Newton. COINTELPRO. And as a result of COINTELPRO, the federal government planted William O'Neill into the Black Panther Party. Now I'm going to clarify on William O'Neill in 1 second, but let me read the chat that's available. Where am I at? Did I throw that away? There you go. Let me read the chat and then I'll continue. Sluggo said, as Yvette Carnell would say, the government picks and chooses winners and losers in this capitalist system. Again, facts as well.
Yeah, the white man. Yeah, the white man.
White man just a joy to be around. They smell like lemon juice and pledge furniture cleaner.
JBJ said, Maurice, I saw that. Ivy called out the NBA for promoting Pride Month, saying it's celebrating unrighteousness. If you believe in the Bible, it is. But again, most believers in the Bible pick and choose. Well, all believers in the Bible pick and choose what they want to believe in because you have no choice. So, I mean, there's not like a lie was told in that situation. That's the truth. That is the truth, but I'm going to stay focused. Let me stay focused. By the way, pigs and U.S. government in general, but especially when concerning the treatment of the Black Panther Party.
You're the worst kind of scum on the face of the earth.
JBJ, y'all, wow. I guess generally speaking, I'll allow certain things, but I'm actually wondering. Sluggo said, it's socialism when the government offers subsidies for the people. But as soon as it subsidizes white farmers, it's suddenly not a problem. Again, they sold black farmers bullshit seeds. They ignore black farmers. They purposely subjugate them to bullshit regulations. And through government sanctions, lessen their ability to make money. Because, again, you're not going to act right when you have an underlying hate for a group of people that you deny and throw a tantrum when it's pointed out because your actions clearly state that you have an underlying hate. Much easier to just stop and be a decent person, but if you're a psychopath swimming and drowning in psychopathy, you have no desire to do that. Quite frankly, you're not even capable. You don't even know what that means. In all seriousness, you have absolutely no idea what that means. Psychopath does not recognize their own psychopathy. They simply play victim. They simply play victim. JBJ said the other players looked at Ivy and said,
what the hell's the matter with you? You want me to get fired? Boy, what the hell's the matter with you? You want me to get fired?
Sluggo said America will not do anything that will give an economic floor to black people. The poor whites would applaud socialism if it was only designated for them. And that's a motherfucking fact.
You're a goddamn genius. You must have a goddamn IQ of 160. You are goddamn gifted.
It was only designated for them when the Irish, the Italians, and the Irish, Italians, why I always do this. Irish, Italians, it wasn't Polish, was it? But when they brought those three sets of people over here, they all got subsidies and some type of economic floor. And those same motherfuckers grow up and say, we came here, we had to struggle, you lying. At any rate, the country is never distinguished. Whatever little bullshit and again, this is the other thing about it. Whatever they went through, whatever problems they face were from other crazy ass fucking white people. It wasn't black people. So why the fuck do all you motherfuckers got a problem with black people? Because they invited you in and said, we'll accept you as one of us as long as you adopt our ignorance and our short-sightedness concerning those people. They only brought y'all here because they weren't going to give us an economic floor. They no longer could work black people for free, and they weren't going to pay us and give us an economic floor, so they brought in a bunch of alternate white people. The Italians sent back about 2.5 million after the first year of working in America. They sent about 2.5 million back home to their homeland. It would have been that much and more if black people were allowed to get paid to work. We didn't even get reparations. Not only that, which they don't mention, when the jobs were available, they wouldn't hire us to do them because they're not going to pay us. So everything about it, they're completely full of shit. The country has an underlying hate for black people, and to ignore that when discussing why we're at where we're at, in some instances, is an insincere analogy. It's a equation where you're taking out part of the equation. You're removing numbers and shit, and then complaining when a motherfucker can't get the problem right. You can't fix the problem when you're leaving vital components out of the goddamn equation. Sluggo saying, preach, Chairman Fred, we need guns. Gotta have them, sir. Sidney Jackson said, preach, Sluggo. That's why this country doesn't have universal health care, because they don't want black people to have it. Choosing hate over health is a sign of defective, demonic, disturbed people. Defective, demonic, disturbed people.
You rotten bums! You're all garbage! All of you!
Defective, demonic, disturbed people.
You're a devil!
Defective, demonic, disturbed people.
Jesus, wow! Come on down and kill that monkey, Jesus!
This song kept replaying in my head the more I looked into Fred Hampton.
Jesus, wow! Come on down and kill that monkey, Jesus!
Sluggo said, anytime black people advocate for something other than capitalism, we get accused of being communist sympathizers. They also accuse Dr. King of it. But here we are in the 21st century where a current president is damn near in bed with a communist power and no one bats an eye. The hypocrisy is never ending.
You hypocrite motherfuckers! You hypocrite motherfuckers! You hypocrite motherfuckers!
ABM said, Nick, were you out at the Huntsville No Kings protest this past weekend? If I had to guess, it's a bunch of dumbass people that voted for this motherfucker complaining about him, quote unquote, being a king and having a no king protest. No, sir, I didn't. And to those
Go to
people,
hell. Go to hell.
if you were voting for something other than nostalgia and the way you truly feel inside, then he wouldn't be in the White House in the first place.
Go to hell. Go to hell.
Series the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy that Ninja, discussing Chairman Fred. The FBI put in an operative, William O'Neill, to infiltrate the Black Panther Party. William O'Neill is the one that provided the diagram of the infrastructure of where Chairman Fred was staying. He had recently been released from prison on bail. The layout of the house was given by William O'Neill. And this was something I didn't know. And again, I didn't watch the movie. I don't know how they covered it, how they showed it, the imagery. Did they talk around it? I haven't seen the movie. I need to see it now, knowing the information that I know now. But December 4th, 1969. Fred Hampton is laying in the bed with his then pregnant girlfriend. There are other people in the house. The police, along with the local police, along with Chicago PD, they had a joint thing. And in conjunction with the FBI and COINTELPRO. And with the information from William O'Neill, who gave them the layout and the diagram of where they were staying and told them where everybody would be. Not only that, William O'Neill drugged Fred Hampton.
Go to hell.
William O'Neill drugged Fred Hampton. I didn't know that. Again, I hadn't seen the movie. I know a lot of people seen the movie like, it is what it is, but I didn't know that shit. Not only did this nigga infiltrate and give them the information, he drugged that nigga. So he wouldn't be coherent when they came to assassinate him. Why the fuck would he need to be? But since the beginning of time, there's always been a motto in these situations.
I need a nigga. 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 I need a nigga.
That nigga was William O'Neill. Gave out the design of the apartment. Drugged Fred Hampton. So he was incapacitated, unable to defend himself. Little clarification on that shortly. The police came, 2 shotguns, multiple revolvers, and an automatic machine gun. Obviously, there was conflicting testimony. But I'm not going to... This is the point where I'm improvising slightly, but this is part where I'm improvising slightly, but wait a minute. That can't be right. Let me see. Hold on. Make sure this is right. Oh, that's why. Let's fix that. Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to allow the young lady that was in the bed with Chairman Fred to tell you what happened when the police came in.
Started shaking the chairman. Said, Chairman, wake up. Pigs are back. Still half asleep. I looked up and I saw bullets coming from, it looked like the front of the apartment, from the kitchen area. They were, pigs were just shooting. And about this time, I jumped on top of the chairman. He looked up. Looked like all the pigs burst at the entranceway to the bedroom area, back bedroom area. The mattress is just going, you could feel the bullets going into it. I just knew they had everybody in there. When he looked up, he didn't say a word, he didn't move, except for moving his head up. He laid his head back down to the side like that. He never said a word. He never got up out the bed. The person who was in the room, they kept calling out, stop shooting, stop shooting. We have a pregnant woman, a pregnant sister in here. At that time, I was 8.5 to 9 months pregnant. My baby was to be delivered in 2 weeks. Pigs kept on shooting. So he kept on hollering out. Finally, they stopped. They pushed me and the other brother by the kitchen door and told us to face the wall. Heard the pig say, he's barely alive, he'll barely make it. I assume they were talking about Chairman Fred. So then, they started shooting the pigs, they started shooting again. I heard the sister scream. They stopped shooting. Pig said, he's good and dead now. The pigs running around laughing, they were really happy, talking about Chairman Fred is dead. I never saw Chairman Fred again.
They murdered that nigga. And there's actually eyewitness testimony. I was surprised how much eyewitness testimony that was actually around. It was almost like the JFK thing where it was obvious they were lying, but nobody cared. The police shot over 100 shots into that goddamn house. They said they shot into the house because they were greeted with gunfire when they said, we're the police and we have a search warrant. Some kind of bullshit excuse about that being an arms house or some shit like that. And that's what they used to justify it. Yeah, they got guns. They're dealing with the goddamn government attacking them and a bunch of ignorant, worthless, low-life, pale motherfuckers in uniforms pretending to be officers. And this is the shit that I found infuriating and interesting. Before I go there, again, there were over 100 shots into that apartment. In multiple cases of the officers lying, I kept the machine gun on single. I fired high to not, shoot anybody. They claim that the woman, and I may play the audio for this, they claim that there was a woman on the couch on the inside that shot out when they knocked on the door and said, police, we have a search warrant. There was absolutely no forensic evidence of a shot coming from that direction. They couldn't put a stick through a hole and make that angle work. It was a lie. There was only one shot coming from the inside, and that was from the man they shot in the chest. That was from the man they shot in the chest, who fired back after being shot in the chest. A understandable reactionary move. One shot. One. And that was from Mark Clark, who got killed and shot in the chest. Several other Panthers took multiple shots. And all of them accounted to what happened was nothing more than a blitz attack and a straight assassination. To where they did nothing but shoot in the room. As the young lady testified, as she was holding Fred Hampton Jr., they were just shooting. And while 100 shots came into that house, Fred Hampton never woke up. They didn't know it at the time, but he had been drugged by William O'Neill. The police walked over and shot him in the head twice. And as she said, celebrated. And I guess the only thing that surprised me a little bit is that the news actually came and interviewed her and they allowed what actually happened to be said. And there's more footage and more coverage where they actually were investigating and asking the officer or the so-called chief about the contradicting testimony or the fact that what they said isn't true. So there actually was some sense of journalism where people wanted to find out the truth. There's none of that shit now. So I know at one point they told them this is what you're going to do and you won't do anything else. Because there's none of that shit now. I don't think anybody, if that person was even allowed to come to fruition or come to prominence, they don't cover that individual. If they do, they smear that individual like they do with Farrakhan. But they actually did cover this and try to find out what the fuck actually happened. But Fred Hampton was murdered in his bed, laying next to his pregnant girlfriend. Mark Clark was murdered. Several other people in the house were shot. And throughout the entire ordeal, the police claimed that there were multiple shots shot out by the Panthers. And honestly, before I read the chat, I just might as well. I got to let this part play because I have to let this. What I have to say, I can't do this justice. Here's an account of what actually happened, and this is the lawyer for Fred Hampton. So again, there are actually some people that actually cared about the truth and try to do right or however you want to say it. And there's documentation of this. And forgive me for the pause. Getting this together. I apologize as this is a little impromptu. Okay. All right, so this is going to be the lawyer for Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party discussing the improprieties in the case. And you're also going to hear the bullshit testimony from the police department. And it's no different than what they do today. So again, it just goes to you can't fix a problem if you don't address it. They've been doing this shit forever. And this is the same bullshit they do when they murder black people now or harass black people now or kick in the door on some kind of irrelevant warrant where all of that shit isn't necessary. They just want to play with their new toys. But I can't do this justice. Let's allow the people that were there to clarify what happened to Fred Hampton. And there's absolutely no doubt or nothing you could say to say that this is anything less than murder. And we're just about where we need to be.
Sergeant Groth, of course, from the beginning claimed, along with his fellow officers, that a shot had been fired by a young Panther woman in the far corner of the living room door as the officers entered the door. The report, however, explains the impossibility of this account given by the officers. Reading again now from the report from page 181, it says, Groth, Davis, Jones, and Gorman, those are all officers, all insist that a shot was fired by Brenda Harris at them as they came in the door. None of them could explain what had become of this shot, and it is not possible to draw a line from the southeast corner of the living room, where Harris was said by Davis and Groth to be on the bed holding the gun, out through the living room door, the entrance hall door, and the outside door. There are no holes in the west wall of the apartment.
Officer Carmody, when you knocked on the door, what happened?
Well, I didn't actually knock. I heard our officers at the front announce their office and shots fired. So I kicked in the back door, and as soon as the door opened, I could see shots being fired at us at the back door.
You have any idea how many shots were fired?
Quite a few. I have no idea.
Any idea over how long a period the gun battle ensued?
It seemed like an hour to me.
Of course, the raiders would have us believe that they approached the apartment in a gentlemanly fashion, that they were attempting to save human life. They knocked on the door and they announced their purpose. They fired no shots until they were fired at. They called for a ceasefire on at least 3 different occasions.
Thereafter, 3 times, Sergeant Groth ordered all his men to cease firing and told the occupants to come out with their hands up. Each time, one of the occupants replied, "Shoot it out."
Okay. These motherfuckers got a machine gun, 2 shotguns, a pistol. They shot over 100 bullets in the apartment. Only 1 bullet was shot outward by the person that was shot in the goddamn chest at the door. Obviously, because when they knocked on the door and announced themselves, they just started shooting. And this motherfucker testified that he screamed for the officers to stop shooting and pleaded for them to come out. And their response was, shoot it out. A bunch of black people said, shoot it out. That's what they said. That he didn't even have a good press writer to write a better lie. Let's just finish it out.
And they continued firing at the police officers.
By their own testimony, they admit that for 12 minutes, for 12 solid minutes in those early morning hours, there was gunfiring in that apartment. And yet the federal grand jury concludes that only 1 possible shot could have come from a Panther weapon. And that shot could have come through the door by a man who had just been shot in the heart. They would have us believe that even though there was only 1 Panther shot, they called for a ceasefire on 3 different occasions and didn't get it, and so they continued their firing. The great variance between the physical evidence and the testimony of the officers raises the question as to whether the officers are falsifying their accounts. Those officers fired 99 shots through the walls of an apartment where they knew people were sleeping. Murder is defined in Illinois as follows: a person who kills an individual without lawful justification commits murder if, in performing the acts which caused the death, he knows that such acts create a strong probability of death or great bodily harm to that individual or another. Federal grand jury comes to its conclusions. Unquestionably, the raid was not professionally planned or properly executed. And the result of the raid was 2 deaths, 4 injuries, and 7 improper criminal charges. In spite of those conclusions, the report then goes on to say, the physical evidence and the discrepancies in the officers' accounts are insufficient to establish probable cause to charge the officers with a willful violation of the occupants' civil rights.
So they shot 100 shots into that man's house. Shot him in the head twice via eyewitness testimony. The grand jury admitted it was done wrong, but found no criminal action liable for the police department in this situation. So Fred Hampton was murdered by the U.S. government, as was any black person who attempted to do anything without their permission. And my only point in this is I'm just curious as to how we're supposed to use a system that has an underlying hate for us, vote for a party that doesn't do a goddamn thing for us, and the only people you get mad at and come at with vitriol are the people that question the intelligence of continuing to do that exact same thing. Political education, Fred Hampton preached that, was understanding you had political power. That's not taught now. And if you bring it up, the average uninformed individual just starts screaming some type of cliche that was given to them by somebody that they haven't investigated. There's no political education. There's no requirement for our politicians. Fred Hampton was an absolute genius. He was a formidable individual. He was a wordsmith. He was somebody that brought people together of all races. Imagine being able to bring together a white Southern group of individuals, a Latin gang, and unify Chicago street gangs. And the Chicago street gangs symbolized, quite frankly, whoever didn't bother to join the Panthers. So you damn near got all the black people with those two groups right there. And they accused this man of being some type of racist. And they assassinated this man and shot him in his head twice in his bed. And like true cowards, they had to make sure he was incapacitated before they even got the chance to do that. Because that man probably would have rather died on his feet than have been killed like that. I think I watched something on Fred Hampton Jr. and he made one point that I kind of agree with, and I'm paraphrasing, but the interviewer was just trying to get a reaction from William O'Neill, and I think that's not understanding and not being educated. Now, he could have said something, but I don't know if that individual understands what he's doing. It's not about William O'Neill. It is, but the problem is the goddamn federal government, the fucking country, conspired to kill Fred Hampton. That's the story. It's so easy to say, man, William O'Neill, what do you think about what he did to your father, and all that? Do you mean what I think about the federal government plotting to kill my father? Is that what you're asking me? They always give you a ninja to look at. But the common sense of it is that nigga wouldn't have been in a position to do that if they didn't offer that to him under some type of threat of jail or something, I'm sure. That's the story. It's about him, but the story is about the federal government conspiring to kill Fred Hampton. And I don't think that should be lost. So that was a great point made by his son. And when he said that, I said, well, he's actually right, because there are going to be William O'Neills, unfortunately.
I need a nigga. I need a nigga. I need a nigga. I need a nigga.
But don't forget about who put him up to it. That's really the main story. And again, 60 years ago, and we're still dealing with the same shit from the police department, and you still have people saying incredibly stupid shit like, that's why you have to vote. You can't vote away piss poor upbringing, bad bathing habits, and an ancestral lust to penetrate your sister. You cannot get rid of that with paperwork. It doesn't work that way. If it did, the shit would be fixed by now. An ingrate is an ingrate. As the yellow one has said, their resume is impeccable. You should stop ignoring it. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, That Ninja. Thank you all for coming aboard and rolling with me. I truly appreciate it. The chat room is different. The hell? ABM says a travesty is they had ADOS. Oh, okay. Let me read it again. Travesty is they had non-ADOS actors playing roles in a movie about the great young revolutionary leader Fred Hampton. Nigga, God damn it. Where Sir Preach? And I gotta acknowledge that. And I have to acknowledge that properly.
Truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth. the truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
Thank you for saying. Look, they do that on purpose, and I find that extremely frustrating. Every significant story about our culture, Europeans are in charge of, and they always bring in a black person from somewhere else to play that person as they bastardize their legacy and create the image that they want. They did it with Harriet Tubman. They did it with the woman. Well, you know what? They didn't do it with the Woman King because Viola Davis was the lead, but they bastardized the story. And through brainwashing and political war and psychological warfare, nobody notices how they're feminizing black men. And if you point it out, you get very selfish, either people that are uninformed, confused, victims of brainwashing, or some that voluntarily do it, engaging in willful ignorance just because it promotes whatever they're a part of in that moment, whether it be their gender, whether it be whatever they choose to do sexually. It promotes that, so they'll ignore the greater good to promote their own bullshit. And that's what happens sometimes when you're trying to point out that they're creating these stories and these narratives to emasculate men. And at the same time, they have to empower somebody creating the conflict. And it's pretty obvious what they're doing, but you look up they took liberties with the story. Same way they did with the Harriet Tubman story. When they talked about Madam C.J. Walker, they made her mortal enemies with, I think, George Washington Carver or something. And these stories, in a time where white people were acting like they are now, but even worse, because they didn't have as many restrictions. Now, they got to pretend to be morally outraged. So it was even worse. And in that situation, they're giving you stories where ninjas are feuding with ninjas because they're in charge of the story. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous, but Sluggo saying lion ass saltine crackers. Yeah, you heard that. You heard them lying in their description of what happened in that situation, and the police do the same shit now.
Liar! You lying bitch. This motherfucker's lying. You lying motherfucker, stop.
Sluggo said, I wish he would have had his house. I wish he would have booby trapped his house so that no one got out alive. Man, I wish. That would have been the proper damn thing for those motherfuckers. And I think he would have been able to strategize something if he was coherent. They were so fearful of him. They had that man drugged. And I can only assume that motherfucker must not have been in the house, or he went in the room where they told him to go so he'd be safe, or what the fuck ever. And, we can get into the whole thing where he allegedly killed himself in the 90s. He was supposed to be guilt-ridden. They relocated him and gave him plastic surgery, changed the way he looked. And allegedly, he killed himself in the 90s. But he allegedly did that after he came out on the interview and said what he did. So I don't know how true that shit is. But either way, whatever he got, that nigga deserved. The underlying lesson, I think, is that, one, don't say that black people haven't done things to improve their condition in America or their situation in America. It's just not true. We've done a lot of things, but there's always been interference, so you need to acknowledge that. So to simply say what's our problem or we're our own worst enemy, I don't think so. I don't think Fred Hampton was his own worst enemy. Neither was Bobby Seale. Neither was Huey P. Newton. Neither was Malcolm X. Neither was Martin Luther King. Neither was Medgar Evers. I don't think any of those individuals were their own worst enemy. I don't think Emmett Till was his own worst goddamn enemy. I don't think Sandra Bland was her own worst enemy. That ignorant, low-life, pale piece of shit that killed her and is still working today was her worst enemy. Nobody, and that's what I wanted to point out about the news. They were actually asking questions and talking about the conflicts in the testimony and the evidence. You get none of that now. Sandra Bland got killed by a cracker piece of shit. They took a picture of her when she was dead, claiming that she killed herself in a jail cell. And nobody has set that man on fire, killed him, or held them accountable. And that man deserves to die in the worst way fucking possible. There is no way, and there is no situation where low-life, poorly raised, ignorant motherfuckers like that should be able to run amok in the police department, and it is literally the only people that they hire. That shit is not an accident. And I think if you understand the history, number one, I just don't like the entire narrative that we haven't done anything for ourselves. That's a lie. But the country doesn't plot and hate any other goddamn nationality. And if you don't factor that in, the only thing left with is to blame yourself. And that's an uneducated and self-hating, stupid-ass damn response and narrative. 2, I think this is evidence that paperwork, verbiage, symbolism, and voting doesn't change the mentality of a group of fucked up people that have never, ever been held accountable for what they did and what they're doing. That's why they haven't changed. Number one, they're proud of their ancestors. Number 2, they've never been held accountable for anything. And when they are, they throw a tantrum. The Black Panther Party was a great organization that influenced a lot of people, and it produced all types of revolutionary leaders that, if left to their own devices, would have still made a huge impact on history, but the impact that they would have made if they were treated like any other pale immigrant would have been significant and something we still talk about today. We're still talking about it, but we would still be able to feel that and maybe talk to these individuals and understand what they did, because it would have continued throughout our childhood and adulthood. So again, I feel like we were robbed of organizations and people that truly were for our advancement. And because anybody that was for our advancement was attacked, that tells me that people that are left alone or promoted are probably sanctioned by these individuals. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, that Ninja Man. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for the back and forth. The Black Panther series part 3. That is interesting. Seems like that chat room was compromised. Those previous chats disappeared. That is crazy. And let me double check this because I actually remember this time. Tomorrow at 6. And unless something egregious happens, that won't change. But either way, I am doing a show this week. My plan is tomorrow at 6 to give you the final part of the Black Panther Party series, focusing on Stokely Carmichael, and I'll wrap this up. And as tradition would have it, I plan on having the annual show on religion the first Monday after Easter, which is the first week in April. So those are the upcoming plans for the show, man. I thank y'all for the back and forth and the participation. Double check that timestamp. Oh, that's about right. That's about right. Appreciate the back and forth. As always, I consider that back and forth to be therapeutic, which makes all of you my de facto therapists. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the session. Abbreviated outro on the way out. R.I.P. DT. Pop taught me to think of all I speak, but do not speak all I think. That simply means that sometimes you either need to shut the fuck up or at least think about what it is you're about to say and who you're about to say it to. R.I.P. DT. Appreciate you, Pop. And I don't feel like going in there to refresh my drink, so I'm going to let that go today. I'll take a shot of juice. Appreciate y'all, man. Thank y'all for the back and forth. I'll see y'all tomorrow, 6 Central. Oh, side note. Duke choking away that game, I believe, jacked up my bracket chances, even though I righteously never really had one. But I was at least close enough to where I could enjoy the moment. But them choking away a game that they firmly had in hand, and I'm not a Duke fan at all. but it was funny to watch them choke that game away. That was hysterical, actually. And it was you can't really have that happen unless you kind of fuck it up on your own. And they did an excellent job of doing that. So just because of my long-term dislike for Duke, I found that shit to be hysterical. Hey, Duke.
Get your ass down!
Anytime Duke loses in dramatic fashion, it's hysterical. Sorry, Griff. I know you're a fan. Sorry, Griff.
Get your ass down!
Appreciate y'all, man. We'll see y'all tomorrow. As always, take care and be easy.